It is my great honor to introduce our commencement speaker, Dr. Lisa Nakamura, Reed graduate from the class of 1987. Dr. Nakamura has helped to define scholarly discourse about the operation of gender, race, and power in cyberspace since the early 1990s. Her prolific body of work examines identity tourism during the rise of the internet as we know it, misogyny in the burgeoning era of social media, and racially motivated attacks on virtual events during the COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Nakamura currently serves as Gwendolyn Calvert Baker Collegiate Professor of American Culture at the University of Michigan, where she is also the inaugural director of the Digital Studies program. She graduated from Reed with a BA in English and earned her PhD in English from the City University of New York Graduate Center. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Nakamura.
Thank you so much for welcoming me back to campus, and congratulations to all graduates. Going to Reed was a defining intellectual experience of my life, and seeing you all here, not in the grid of profile photos, name tags, and chat logs that has mediated our lives for too many years, is immensely moving. Reed is unlike any other place, and its graduation is unlike any other. Particularly this year, when the pandemic, also known as the pancetta, the pandowdy, I always think of the word paideia, my first experience of mutual aid, has added distance, loneliness, and anxiety to an already immense enterprise, to learn how to learn, and to write a thesis that contributes original thinking and research to the world. So everyone had to relearn how to learn, given no classrooms, little in the way of community that couldn't be delivered over a digital network and a screen, all in the midst of the most significant racial justice movement centered around Black Lives Matter, a divisive political climate that saw rioting in the streets and a violent takeover of the nation's capital, and global uncertainty about the future. Yours is an enormous achievement because you've excelled during some of the most challenging, and I wouldn't be sorry if we never use the word challenging again and instead just use the word hard, stressful and alienating moments in my lifetime. I have 3 urgent things to tell you. The first, there is no one way to be successful in your chosen endeavor. I'm not talking about not knowing what you're going to do for a year or two. I think that's normal. But rather, doing many, many things completely wrong, as I have done, has led me directly to my field of study, race, gender, and digital inequality. Second, I truly believe, I know, that going to Reed builds a foundation of intellectual curiosity, an openness to weirdness, conflict, and intensity that prepared me for the great polarities and intensities of this historical period. Reed combines Dionysian celebration, Spartan discipline and self-denial, divisiveness and community, social and intellectual frictions that can both drive you crazy and be a fertile space for thinking together. Third, that learning how to rest is a revolutionary act, especially in the context of elite higher education. The first piece, doing things wrong. I'm the child of 2 U.S. internment camp survivor parents, and the first in my family to get a PhD. As a result, I would never have had the courage to apply to graduate school were it not for my own dear thesis advisor, Professor Barbara Getty, who kindly chose my thesis topic for me because I lacked the intellectual confidence to do it for myself. It's so Reed that you find that cool, but I graduated as an English major in 1987, 4 years after entering, mostly because I was so clueless about how college worked, I didn't know what an incomplete was and therefore never asked for one. Every one of my papers was marked down for lateness, and I looked at my grades only a few times, a point of pride for an Asian child of post-war strivers. So I was rejected to or blew the application deadline for every graduate school I applied for, except for the City College of New York, which had an open deadline. I applied to this place thinking I was applying to the CUNY Graduate Center, City University of New York Grad Center, PhD program in English, only to find during the first week of class that these were two different institutions, and that I had applied to and been admitted to City College's master's program, which was not the same. I also did not have any funding. I was eventually able to beg my way into matriculation at the CUNY Grad Center, an act that I now realize was completely nuts and could never happen today. And because of my time at Reed, I was the only student in my PhD program who found graduate school to be restful and intellectually less demanding than college. The second piece. Commencement speeches often stress the intimacy, value, and lasting closeness of the social networks that you create as a student. That's not necessarily true for everyone. It wasn't true for me. What Reed gave me was something different. Learning community, interdependence, vulnerability. There's nothing more vulnerable than sitting in a room with 11 people who have total access to your attention for 90 minutes. The principle of mutual aid that your generation is justly famous for reviving and reinventing, and the creation of a polarized and passionate community based on together action. Buddhist monk Seung San wrote that, quote, "Together action is like washing potatoes. When people wash potatoes in Korea, instead of washing them one at a time, they put them all in a tub full of water. Then someone puts a stick in the tub and pushes it up and down, up and down. This makes the potatoes rub against each other. As they bump into each other, the hard, crusty dirt falls off. If you wash potatoes one at a time, it takes a long time to clean each one, and only one potato gets clean at a time. If they are all together, the potatoes clean each other," end quote. Reed was a barrel full of strange potatoes and strange dirt in 1983. When I came here as a result of a visit from a Reed College recruiter to my large public high school in Cupertino, which had not yet become Silicon Valley. A strong desire to avoid going to class by any means necessary meant that my boyfriend and friend and I attended every recruiter presentation offered, no matter what it was. I accumulated many glossy, full-color brochures full of wholesome-looking white students, again, this was 1983, enjoying verdant campuses and wearing fashionable preppy clothing without any irony. The Reed recruiter came at such an odd time of year that only 3 of us attended the presentation. He had a beard and he handed out one of the strangest documents I had ever seen, a cross between a Lord of the Rings appendix, a Whole Earth catalog, and an academic's family album. It was adorned by gorgeous calligraphy and lists of obscure-sounding courses. It had a sepia-toned photograph of a young man weaving a basket underwater. No one that I knew had ever heard of Reed. All 3 of us applied early decision and were accepted. Our first Humanities 110 assignment was to write about Book 2 of the Iliad, I think it's Book 2, the Catalog of Ships chapter. Reed's audacity to require pre-reading before classes had even started was entirely on brand for what was to come. To ask a lot and then to ask for more. Because I was a mythology nerd, I'd already read the Iliad, though not in the approved translation. But I'd skipped that chapter because it was just a list of all the ships the Greek army brought to Troy, the people on them, and the items they brought with them. What could this mean? Who thought this made sense in any way, was engaging, or could be analyzed? It had no characters, no narrative, and because I was used to figuring things out on my own, it was uniquely frustrating. It was like a Buddhist koan. The more I thought about it, the more confusing it was. It didn't seem to mean to be understood, yet my first task as a college student was to show that I could master this. Our first humanities seminar was a murderer's row of characters I had imagined but never seen in the flesh in my culturally homogeneous California suburb. People from other countries who spoke many languages, some of whom did not know how to drive, but had built houses, competed in the Olympics, or excelled at other exotic activities. My humanities professor, a gentle, self-effacing, and very rigorous philosopher named Neil Thomason, opened the floor and everyone immediately started arguing and disagreeing with each other passionately. Some students even admitted from jump they had not done the reading, a theme that was to recur as the workload got heavier. But they had burning opinions that needed to be heard. This was perfect preparation for studying the internet in 1994. When I first logged on to a virtual world chat room, Lambda Mu, in 1992, the fire hose of information, of passionate disagreement, of community was both utterly strange and entirely familiar. The total and engaged commitment to embracing the alien that Read conferences required in style, in content, in intention was the best preparation anyone could have ever had for understanding the new medium. So, now strangers can write to each other in real time to completely take down someone else's opinion and call them an idiot, or worse. Read College seminars explained what an ad hominem argument was and what it felt like before the term flame war entered the picture. So, now people can make avatars that have a different race, gender, and identity that they themselves have. The ceaseless interrogation of authenticity, sincerity, and intention that characterize Read discourse, the most discoursey of discourses, was familiar territory. The internet was just more strange potatoes. Spending massive amounts of time at Read thinking about people, things, and places that were separated from me by millennia, by race, by gender, was great preparation for analyzing and researching this, because before it is anything else, Read is a place where undergraduates do high-level research, a habit that persists because that's what a habit is. I've since spent my career researching online identity and racial embodiment on the internet, a topic as far afield from Isaac Denison's short stories, the topic of my thesis, as possible. The last piece, rest as resistance and revolution. Commencement speeches can be grandiose and utopian in ways that don't feel right for this moment and don't feel right for Read. Instead of telling you that with great privilege comes great responsibility, that you are powerful and that you are the future, I will tell you that what you have done, become an intellectual, a scientist, an artist, a writer, during COVID is enough responsibility to last a lifetime. Readies, in my experience, aren't challenged by challenges. Excelling is a sweet spot for you. Choosing to come here and choosing to graduate from here is evidence that you instead, is evidence of that. Instead, learning to rest, to recalibrate what productivity means and means for you, to keep a reserve for yourself after institutions extract from you what they need, to resist and remake systems that compel the exploitation of the self, that demand everything you have and everything that you don't have, is the difficult and the subversive task. At Read, you've had intense experiences inhabiting strange and new textual, technological, and social worlds. This place is a beautiful experiment in together action. I don't have to tell you to achieve in any particular direction at any level, because you will do that anyway. I ask instead that you take care of yourselves and of each other, because your life is precious and important, because resting is a political act, and because you deserve it. Thank you.